Hey everyone, it's Christy from Christy's Beautiful Life, and I'm here for another everyday inspiration. Today we are using my inspiration photo, which is it's my kind of mirror collage thing on my wall in my living room, and it has all of our initials with the exception of Barrett, because this was taken before Barrett was born and we hadn't named him yet. So I'm going to go ahead and play along with kind of the same idea that the letters are what popped out to me, and I'm going to use all of ours and trace and use some fun mist to kind of highlight each letter and just create. I really wasn't sure where to go with this. It's funny when you pick your own inspiration, what ends up happening. You think of something and you're like, oh, this would be so much fun, and then at least I find I actually struggle more on my own inspiration pieces than I do on everyone else's. I can hone in on something on someone else's and create a really cool layout that I love. And with mine, I struggle. I still really like this layout, but it was a struggle. So doing this and where I'm at now, this is probably like at least a half an hour into trying to figure out a layout to begin with. So it was a struggle. And then of course I went to spray, realized that they weren't, obviously I hadn't glued them down or anything, so they were going to go all over the place. So I have to use a little tiny bit of adhesive. Thankfully mine is not a permanent stick. It does eventually become, but you've got a bit of time to play with it. So enough that I can stick it down and then use my mist to spray. I'm going to go ahead and use pink for myself. I use purple for Nora. I do not like this purple. It is called Princess and it's too dark, but it's the only one I had, so I'm just going to go with it. I use Frostbite for Barrett, my favorite teal color I have for Jackson, and then a lighter blue for Sean. And yeah, I like them all together. It definitely works. I let them dry and it turns out just fine. In between the J and the C get a little bit muddy, but it's not like a bad muddy, if that makes sense, but it is just a tad bit muddy. And I'm initially thinking like, perfect, now I can just create my layout off of that. Still no idea what I'm going with. I kind of like the bit of an airy feel that I have going there, but how am I going to fill out all of that white space? I'm not really sure. So I'm thinking about that. I happen to have this pattern paper laying down on my desk because of a layout I created that you will see coming up in a couple days. And so this piece was just kind of left over hanging out on my desk, so I grabbed that quickly. I love how the colors are kind of represented in it, so I'm going to work with that. And then I had pulled a bunch of chipboard as well, because my original thought was to use chipboard as like the elements from my wall, but I didn't like the way that turned out. Nothing was matching. But I still have them on my desk. And then I'm like, okay, well, that's not working. So instead what I'm going to do is pull out my leftover bits that I have from my Bohemian Dreams collection. This is the kit I'm trying to kill this month, and next month it was my How to Kill a Kit with Style kit that I've been using with kind of this whole spring. And I'm going to just use a couple, really I just use that bright, fun, colorful one there, but it's one more piece used up, so that's all good. And I like that it's got the same colors that is in my letters, and I'm going to work with that. You watch me look at everything else. I'm trying to see what else I can use. Nothing else is calling to me, so I'm just simply going to go ahead and trim this paper just a little bit so there's a nice white border around everything. And this layout's just simply going to become this year. Every year I do a layout called This Is Us, and it represents where we are in our life, and I try to take it kind of similar time frame every year. It tends to be right around this time. And I love this layout. I think it's, I love the layout too, but I love the idea of doing this. And I have them all back to back to back in an album, so you can kind of see the progression of what we're doing in our life. And it's kind of like, instead of doing a day in the life or something like that, it's just a quick snip with a little bit of journaling, and you can see the photos of how the kids have aged and all of that. So I don't know. I think it's pretty cute, but that's what this turns out being. And as I'm looking at this, I'm just like, I'm trying to avoid stitching, but it's missing something, and that something is stitching. So I am going to go ahead and pierce all the holes and stitch, and I just simply stitch the color that I sprayed, the color that I stitch. So there, that's how that works out. And yes, I am using a piece of pattern paper. I know it's very pretty pattern paper, but don't worry, I still have it to play with. I use the back of those. That's how I use white cardstock when I know that it's going to get backed onto another piece of pattern paper, which is what my initial plan was for this. That doesn't actually happen to work out, but that was my initial plan. So yes, I know, pretty paper that could have been used, but I have another sheet of it. And that's how I kind of save a little bit of money. So I don't use like my really good cardstock on projects that don't necessarily need it. And I can save it for heavier mixed media projects instead. And there we have it. Honestly, guys, like that's basically what the layout looks like, except it's too simple for me. I know it's missing something. It needs something. I just don't know what it is. So I asked Daisy, and she recommended that I look at finding some white elements to add. So I went ahead and played with that, and I was able to find 3 white hearts that I thought represented the kids really well. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And then I also go ahead and use a little bit of floral from one of my Cheeky Studio collections. I find that they match really well on the lighter tone of the floral. And I'm going to use those to match up the rest and do just a little bit more. So there's a little added something there. And then I go to the sticker sheet from the collection, the Bohemian Dreams collection, and I just pick out the words that I feel like kind of represent each one of us, or could represent us as a family. And I'm going to layer that on each one of our names, the letters of our names, and that basically, honestly, is going to be what this layout looks like. But because I struggled so much, you're going to watch me do that for a couple minutes. So, oh my goodness, excuse me. So please make sure that you are checking out Daisy and Dolly and Crystal and Jen's take on this. I cannot wait to see what they end up doing. I'm sure that the letters are probably going to be a pretty big feature in this month. I noticed it right away. I have a feeling that that's probably what most people are going to notice right away. And I cannot wait to see what ends up happening. I love this series and all the different takes that we kind of go with, and it could go anywhere. So I really hope that you enjoyed that. Another thing you could have done with my inspiration piece, if you wanted to use it yourself, is maybe take the colors. So Nora's name is in the pink, and you could take that pink and then the silvery colors that I have got going on with Jackson and Sean. I do have gold for my initial, so you could do it with the color scheme going on there. There's white in the word relax, and I've got wood grain frames. So there you could just use it as the color scheme. You could use the fact that like Sean's initial is in an arrow, and you could take that arrow and run with that. There's just so many different things you could do. You could take one of the photo frames. I've got one where there's 2 vertical photos and 3 horizontal photos, and that could be the design of your layout. And yeah, I can see lots of ways you could do it now that I'm looking at it. But of course that's not what I did, but definitely could have. So here are those florals I was talking about, and yeah, I just kind of play around with them. I end up actually putting my title on that one. I just feel like it ties everything in together. And my biggest problem is I was trying to make everything combine, because right now it's like completely 2 sides with a pretty sharp line in between, and you've got to cross that divide somehow. And I felt like those florals were hopefully going to do the trick. So you let me know what you think about it. It's maybe not my favorite layout, but I do like the way it turns out. I am thinking about maybe re-scrapping it. I know that hurts a lot of people's ears, but I kind of have a different idea that maybe I could go with it. So we'll see if I get to it. I'm still in the process of finishing up 30 days, so it's not going to happen this month at least. But there you have it, guys. It's coming to an end. Be sure to check out everyone else's videos, and I will see you next month with another everyday inspiration, and tomorrow with another 30 days of sketches. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye.